I don't care.
Tesla Motors. Led by Elon Musk, the vehicle brand was once considered the savior of sustainable transportation, accompanied by roaring stock prices. But there's one problem. After numerous controversies, lawsuits, and the politicization of its leader, Tesla's sales are in an unprecedented slide, and the company faces declining market share around the world. Under the leadership of its chief executive, Elon Musk, Tesla has a dark side, and it's catching up to them. Let's learn more. This is Profit Hawk. Welcome to Profit Hawk, where we analyze the best and worst of the business world. Today, we're looking at Tesla Motors, specifically all the controversy surrounding the company and its leader, Elon Musk. We've seen numerous headlines about scandal, legal trouble, and falling sales. Tesla once showed promise, but how did we get here? Let's start with an overview. Due to the sheer volume of incidents at Tesla over the years, I'm structuring this video into several categories to make it more digestible. I'll highlight a few incidents in each category, rather than go through an entire list chronologically. First, we'll establish a brief history of Elon's involvement in the company's early years. Next, we'll break down Tesla's controversies into several buckets: labor conditions, customer safety and privacy, fraud and misappropriation, racism and harassment, and political activities. Lastly, we'll analyze the impact this has had on Tesla and its brand value. There's honestly so much to go through that a deep dive into any specific category could be an hour-long video on its own, but hopefully this will be enough to get the point across. First, let's lay the groundwork. Despite popular belief, Tesla was started in 2003, not by Elon, but by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Due to the scale of their hiring and design effort, Martin and Mark sought out venture capital funding. They did some networking and were introduced to Elon Musk, who had sold his stake in PayPal. Elon got involved with Tesla the following year with a $6.5 million Series A investment. Martin and Mark brought him on board as the company chairman and the largest shareholder. As the company grew, Elon clashed with Eberhard, the company's chief executive. He convened the board of directors to remove Eberhard from his role. And in 2008, Elon appointed himself as CEO. Eberhard later sued Tesla, alleging reputational damage and breach of contract. He accused Elon of seeking to rewrite history by taking credit for early accomplishments and minimizing Eberhard's role with the company. Elon fought back, and the parties eventually came to a settlement, with one of the conditions that Elon himself could now be called a founder of Tesla.
I'm not sure why he has to also say that he was a founder when he wasn't. I don't understand that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
With Elon at the helm, Tesla went through more rounds of fundraising. In 2009, the company accepted a nearly $500 million loan from the United States government as part of a vehicle manufacturing program led by the Department of Energy. The following year, Tesla launched its initial public offering on NASDAQ, raising $225 million from stock sales. With an improved financial outlook, the company expanded and purchased a factory in Fremont, California. Over the next few years, they produced additional models of vehicles. By 2015, the Los Angeles Times estimates that Tesla received approximately $2.4 billion in federal and state subsidies. That background helps set the stage for the company's controversies. Let's jump into the first category: labor conditions. It's a story that's been told over and over again. An excited job applicant starts working at Tesla, caught up in the company's hype about changing the future. But once they're on board, the situation is worse than they imagined. A stressful environment with long hours, low pay, and factory conditions that put them at risk for workplace injuries. At Tesla factories, workers have been sliced by machinery, crushed by forklifts, burned in electrical explosions, and sprayed with molten metal. A 2017 investigation by The Guardian into Tesla's work conditions called out numerous issues. They interviewed over a dozen factory workers who relayed incidents of coworkers who collapsed or had to be taken away in ambulances. One Tesla worker published a blog post to raise awareness about working conditions. Quote, "Most of my coworkers work well over 40 hours a week, including excessive mandatory overtime. The hard, manual labor we put in to make Tesla successful is done at great risk to our own bodies. I hear coworkers quietly say they're hurting, but they're too afraid to report it for fear of being labeled as a complainer or bad worker by management. Management actions are feeding workers' fears about speaking out. Recently, every worker was required to sign a confidentiality policy that threatens consequences if we exercise our right to speak out about wages and working conditions." The Guardian also looked into the company's overall injury statistics. Tesla acknowledged that its total recordable incident rate, as described by OSHA, exceeded the industry average through 2016. However, they noted their 2017 injury rate was not only improved, but a whopping 32% below the industry average, a massive improvement in a single year. Tesla claimed that the employee complaints highlighted in the media's investigation were a, quote, "misleading narrative based on anecdotes, not facts. Watch for these articles to downplay or ignore our actual 2017 safety data." Well, journalists dove into that 2017 safety data that Tesla touted, analyzing Tesla's internal business documents, medical records, and speaking with numerous members of the company. They found that Tesla failed to report some of its workers' serious injuries on legally mandated reports in an apparent effort to make the company's 2017 injury numbers look better than they actually were. One Tesla safety officer said, quote, "I saw injuries on there, like broken bones and lacerations that they were saying were not recordable. I saw a lot of stuff that was like, wow, this is crazy." For example, one Tesla worker suffered debilitating headaches and respiratory issues after being repeatedly exposed to toxic fumes while applying a strong adhesive on car battery packs. He sought treatment through multiple hospital visits. Tesla disagreed with their medical assessment and did not log the injury as a work-related injury, instead attempting to label it as a personal medical case. Coincidentally, one OSHA citation around that time documented how Tesla failed to inform employees about the presence of hazardous chemicals and how to protect those employees from such exposures. A 2018 report identified Tesla as one of the most dangerous workplaces in the US, with the rate of serious injuries 83% higher than the industry average. So what was Tesla's response to all this reporting? They put out a statement attacking the media as an extremist organization, calling it, quote, "an ideologically motivated attack and a calculated disinformation campaign." That type of response had become increasingly common for Tesla when faced with criticism. As a 2018 article from Slate points out, rather than addressing valid concerns about Tesla's own business operations, the tone the company is taking now borders on hysterical, and it appeals to people's reflexive mistrust of the media in a way that feels awfully familiar in the Trump era. Given all the drama surrounding labor conditions, you might ask, why don't Tesla workers just unionize? After all, Tesla is the only major American automaker whose workforce is not represented by a union. Well, Elon Musk has a famously anti-union stance. Although that's not unique among big company CEOs, Elon takes it a step further than most.
I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing. And I think the unions naturally try to create negativity in a company and create a kind of sort of lords and peasants situation.
In 2019, a California judge ruled that Elon Musk and other Tesla executives had been illegally sabotaging employee efforts to form a union. And in multiple separate incidents, the National Labor Relations Board ruled that Tesla violated labor laws when it fired employees in retaliation for pro-union activity. A CNBC report in 2022 found that Tesla paid a public relations firm to spy on Tesla employees and union organizers on social media, paying particular attention to their discussion about unfair labor practices or company lawsuits. So if Tesla employees struggle with personal safety and privacy, what about Tesla customers? Let's zoom out and move on to our next category, customer safety and privacy. When you buy a Tesla, you may be doing it because you like the idea of an electric car with modern technology. But all that data collecting technology puts your privacy at risk. In 2023, the Mozilla Foundation reviewed the privacy and security standards at various car manufacturers and graded them based on dozens of individual metrics about the way they handled customer data. Although many brands scored relatively poorly, Tesla was the only car brand that failed in every single metric. Tesla assures its owners that their privacy is and will always be enormously important to us. The cameras it builds into vehicles are designed from the ground up to protect your privacy. And its camera recordings remain anonymous and are not linked to you or your vehicle. But a 2023 investigation by Reuters discovered that over a multi-year period, Tesla employees routinely accessed videos and images recorded by customer car cameras, and they would pass around the content on internal company message boards. Some of the videos caught customers in embarrassing situations, like one video of a man approaching his Tesla completely naked. Some caught shocking road accidents, like one customer who hit a child riding a bike. One former employee says, "We could see inside people's garages in their private properties." Let's say that a Tesla customer had something in their garage that was distinctive. People would post those kind of things. Another employee acknowledges, "I'm bothered by it because the people who buy the car, I don't think they know their privacy is not respected. We could see them doing laundry and really intimate things. We could see their kids." A third employee says, "It was a breach of privacy, to be honest. And I always joked that I would never buy a Tesla after seeing how they treated some of these people." As a result of Reuters' investigative work, a class action lawsuit was filed in California over the alleged privacy intrusions. It was later moved to arbitration. So if Tesla has a history of snooping on its customers, are the vehicles at least safe to use? The answer is, it's complicated. Starting in 2015, there was a controversy known as wompy wheels, where a vehicle's suspension system would break, sometimes causing a wheel to collapse or fall off the car.
Parts of the area thunderstorm. Now let's see some fundamental.
Tesla asked owners to sign non-disclosure agreements covering repairs for safety issues. An investigation by Reuters revealed that while Tesla was publicly dismissing customer claims of a faulty suspension, internally, for years, they were documenting these chronic part failures as flawed. These failures had consequences. In one example in 2022, a customer's suspension failed while driving, causing the car's undercarriage to hit the road and crash, resulting in the death of the driver and passenger. Rather than issue a recall on these defective suspensions, Tesla began blaming drivers, accusing them of driver abuse, and stating that there is no defect in the components and no associated safety risk. The strategy was apparently to shift repair costs onto customers instead of having Tesla cover repairs of its own defective vehicles. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, opened an inquiry in response to numerous complaints about suspension failures. And then, there are Musk's prized technologies, autopilot and full self-driving, which automate most aspects of the driving experience, including steering, speed, lane changes, and responses to traffic lights and obstacles. Elon and Tesla have repeatedly claimed that their automation technologies lead to a far safer driving experience. To promote these claims, Tesla began publishing safety statistics, which demonstrate decreased accident rates while using autopilot compared to human drivers. And when accidents do occur, Elon has often claimed that the accident data exonerates the company because its autopilot was not active at the moment of collision. However, after the NHTSA began investigating crashes with autopilot, they found numerous instances where the autopilot had, quote, aborted vehicle control less than 1 second prior to impact, which some articles suggest may have been an attempt by Tesla to absolve itself of responsibility in crashes caused by autopilot. That alleged trick calls into question the safety numbers they've published. The United States Justice Department was investigating Tesla for its marketing of full self-driving and autopilot features, and the Securities and Exchange Commission launched its own investigation to determine if Tesla committed securities or wire fraud by deliberately misleading customers and investors about the company's self-driving capabilities. So if it's hard to trust Tesla's own safety claims, what about the car's official safety ratings? In 2017, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety released crash safety results for a number of vehicles, including the Tesla Model S. Several cars received top safety grades, but the Tesla did not. In a now predictable response, rather than addressing valid safety concerns brought up by the crash test results, Tesla instead put out a statement attacking the organization and its testing process. Tesla claimed that its cars had, quote, the lowest probability of injury of any cars ever tested, making them the safest cars in history. Really? The NHTSA sent Elon Musk a cease and desist letter due to his repeated deceptive and inaccurate statements about vehicle safety ratings. It told Musk that Tesla's claims had misled customers and that its repeated false statements generated consumer confusion to give Tesla an unfair market advantage. They referred the matter to the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection. But Elon's deception didn't stop with Tesla customers. It also included shareholders. Let's move on to the next category, fraud and misappropriation. Maybe the most famous example of this occurred in 2018 with Elon's public announcement of funding secured. Quote, am considering taking Tesla private at $420 per share. Funding secured. Shareholders could either sell at $420 or hold shares and go private. This announcement apparently caught Tesla executives off guard. Shortly after these tweets went public, Tesla's own head of investor relations seemed confused, asking, was this text legit? And even telling investment bank analysts, I actually don't know, but I would assume that given Elon went full on public with this offer is as firm as it gets. Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission smelled bullshit and charged Elon Musk with securities fraud, accusing him of false and misleading statements in a 9-point complaint, including, among other things, that Elon Musk knew when he made the announcement that he had not agreed to any terms for going private. 2, that Musk had no substantive communications with a funding source. 3, that Musk never discussed any transaction at that particular share price, and that he also violated numerous other securities requirements. Tesla was also charged for failing to have appropriate controls in place. Elon and Tesla later settled the case with the SEC, each for a $20 million fine, and agreeing to corporate changes. Elon had to step down as Tesla chairman. Independent directors were appointed to the board, and a lawyer had to approve some of Elon's communications.
I want to be clear. I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them.
Elon and the SEC continued to butt heads over the ensuing years, with the SEC telling Tesla that the company had failed to enforce these procedures and controls, despite repeated violations by Mr. Musk. Did you note how an independent board of directors is an important control to prevent fraud? Well, a few months prior to that whole fiasco, 2 similar ones were brewing in Tesla's boardroom. Beginning in 2017, Tesla's board of directors awarded themselves unfair and excessive compensation, according to a lawsuit brought by its shareholders, which said it was grossly in excess for a corporate board. They later settled the lawsuit for $735 million. In 2018, the board of directors approved a compensation plan for its chief executive, Elon Musk, granting him a pay package worth up to $56 billion. Yes, billion with a B. At the time, the pay package was 250 times larger than the average CEO compensation and was even higher than the entire market capitalization of Tesla's business. If that sounds suspicious, you're not alone. Tesla was again sued by its shareholders, who claimed the board had breached their fiduciary duties in a flawed process that was dictated by Musk himself. A federal court agreed with the shareholders and rejected Elon's compensation plan, ruling that Musk had, quote, engineered the landmark pay package in sham negotiations with directors who were not independent, in an attempt to provide himself with the largest compensation ever observed in public markets by multiple orders of magnitude. Put simply, neither the compensation committee nor the board acted in the best interest of the company when negotiating Musk's compensation plan. In fact, there is barely any evidence of negotiations at all. The federal judge pointed out people who were supposed to be negotiating on behalf of Tesla and its shareholders instead had extensive personal ties to Musk, with a board that not only included Elon's family and friends, but a compensation committee that included Elon's old personal divorce attorney. The court further found that Tesla made misleading statements in attempting to frame their process as fair and unbiased. But Tesla's bias was not just limited to its executives' pay package. Let's continue these observations in our next category, racism and harassment. Tesla has faced numerous complaints over workplace harassment and discrimination. In 2017, Tesla contractor Marcus Vaughn filed a lawsuit alleging that the factory production floor was a hotbed of racist behavior. More than 100 other former Tesla employees joined in, signing sworn statements alleging Tesla allows a racially hostile work environment in its factories. According to the lawsuit, despite numerous reports to supervisors, human resources, and Musk himself, the complaints were not investigated. Instead, the victim was terminated for not having a positive attitude. Tesla put out a statement in response, stating it is absolutely against any form of discrimination, harassment, or unfair treatment of any kind. When we hear complaints, we take them very seriously, investigate thoroughly, and if proven to be true, take immediate action. Well, according to court documents, that situation was only addressed after the victim filed a lawsuit, over 18 months after making Tesla aware of the conduct. And when Tesla finally terminated the harassers, they were told to reapply to work at the factory after 6 months. For years, most employees have been prevented from filing lawsuits due to forced arbitration clauses in their employment contracts. Some have fought for the right to sue the company. In 2024, a California judge ruled that more than 6,000 current and former Black employees can proceed with a class action lawsuit. A tentative date has been set for late 2025. Black workers have also described how a hostile workplace culture affects their career trajectory. They document struggles for job promotion and being forced to perform menial tasks below their pay grade or different from their colleagues. According to Tesla itself in a 2020 report, Black workers represent only 4% of management positions of the company. In 2022, California's civil rights regulator sued Tesla, alleging systemic racial discrimination and harassment. And in 2023, its federal counterpart, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, sued Tesla for permitting widespread harassment of Black workers and for retaliating against them. A federal judge allowed the lawsuit to proceed and noted that the EEOC has done more than enough to show that the racial harassment at Tesla was severe. But Black workers were not the only target. Numerous women have overcome the forced arbitration and sued Tesla. They allege a culture of sexual harassment that includes common experiences like catcalling, physical groping, and discrimination. They describe reporting the behavior to their supervisors and to HR, but not seeing it addressed. At least one lawsuit describes the victim being fired in retaliation for reporting the harassment. When reporting the conduct, one woman said her supervisor treated her complaint like a joke. Another said she was not sure who to complain to, given that the supervisors or leads were often the harassers. In that 2020 Tesla report, women make up just 17% of management roles. While Tesla continues to deal with the fallout from those lawsuits, its CEO has been busy making headlines for different reasons. Let's move on to the next category, political activities. Running a company like Tesla is already a big task. Now, imagine juggling 5 businesses simultaneously. Why would a CEO with that kind of responsibility take the time to dive headfirst into the world of national politics? This isn't just about writing a small check. Elon became America's biggest political contributor by spending nearly $300 million to elect Donald Trump and his allies. This led to Elon's appointment as a trusted advisor in the president's inner circle, running a controversial agency known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, seemingly intent on weakening or eliminating aspects of the government. But why? Elon has been positioning Tesla's electric vehicles as a savior of climate and the environment, which makes it attractive to liberal buyers. But he loudly and publicly endorses politicians who support the opposite: increased oil and gas drilling, decreased environmental regulations, and removal of electric vehicle subsidies. So in effect, he's pulled a 180, alienating the exact people who are most likely to be his customers, and trying to appeal to a demographic least likely to be interested in Tesla. So what's Elon's motivation for getting involved in government? Well, the reasons go far beyond simple civic duty. The obvious answer is that he wants to create a favorable environment for his businesses, particularly with regulations, tax policy, and legal issues. Despite the obvious conflicts of interest, Musk and Doge have attacked and attempted to weaken agencies involved in legal and regulatory battles with his businesses.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
For example, remember the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration? That's the organization with numerous investigations into Tesla's deadly crashes. They also called out Tesla's attempts to mislead customers over its car safety ratings. Well, that agency was a target for Elon to attack. How about the Department of Labor, which oversees OSHA, the organization that repeatedly fined Tesla for failing to protect the safety of its own employees? Yes, also a target. How about the Securities and Exchange Commission, which charged Elon with securities fraud more than once and charged Tesla for failing to have financial controls in place? Yes, also a target. How about the National Labor Relations Board, which ruled that Tesla violated labor laws? Yes, also a target. In addition, he's targeting agencies regulating his other businesses, including the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which would police Twitter's new payment platform, the Federal Aviation Administration, involved in legal battles over SpaceX rocket tests, the Food and Drug Administration, regulating safety at Neuralink, among many others. For what it's worth, the Trump White House has stated Elon Musk is capable of resolving his own conflicts of interest in this role. Obviously, he's not doing that. But it seems like a convenient arrangement for someone who spent nearly $300 million to elect the administration he now works in. To some, that might seem like buying elected officials. To Elon, it's probably well worth the cost, especially if he can remake government to his liking and let his businesses operate long-term with insufficient oversight. Not to mention the perks of the President of the United States advertising Tesla cars on the White House lawn.
Thank you all very much. I love Tesla.
Elon has also begun to support right-wing political parties across the globe, including endorsing the far-right party in German elections. And he's used his status as owner of a social media platform to boost his voice in politics, even giving takes on issues that make most people recoil in disgust. One researcher noted that Musk is succeeding in branding himself as a kind of global spokesperson of the far right. There's an irony to this, because far-right leaders usually want to protect their nation from outside influences, whereas Musk is a billionaire who built his wealth from transnational corporate capital. In other words, he is the product of neoliberal globalization. So do Elon's political activities have unintended consequences for Tesla? Let's zoom out. We've now covered Tesla controversies under Elon's leadership, going from the company's own employees to its customers, to shareholders, and to Elon's politics. So what effect has all this had on Tesla, its sales, and its brand value? Let's move on to the final category, effects on Tesla. We've pointed out some of the company's controversies stretching back to the early 2010s, but over the years, these appeared to have minimal effect on Tesla's sales and stock price. Apparently, customers were either unaware of the earlier controversies or willing to overlook them at the time. However, Elon's increasingly high profile, contentious public statements, and partisan political activities are now almost impossible to miss in the news cycle. To put it simply, he's caused a major negative impact on Tesla's business. As the saying goes, it takes years to build up a brand's reputation and just seconds to destroy it. The sales numbers for early 2025 have come in, and they're not good. In China, which is arguably Tesla's largest and most important market, the company experienced a 50% drop in sales. In Australia, sales are down 72% compared to the year prior. In Norway, sales declined 45%, despite the country's electric vehicle market actually growing by more than 50% in the same period. In Germany, Tesla's sales have declined over 70%. And again, that's despite Germany's electric vehicle sales simultaneously growing. A recent poll of Germans asked if they would consider buying a Tesla. The answer, 94% said no. It's clear that Tesla's market share is shrinking around the globe. Even customer trade-ins have hit a record high. The value of used Teslas are falling at more than double the rate of an average used car. Owners are feeling buyer's remorse, and some are willing to sell for a loss. One woman traded in her Tesla Model Y and took a $20,000 financial hit. Quote, "It did lose a vast amount of value in the short 2 years that I had it. It only had 10,000 miles on it. But Musk's role in the government doesn't fall in line with my morals, my beliefs. And every time I looked at that car, that's what I thought of." Some drivers are removing the Tesla badge from their vehicle. Others are applying stickers to their cars to let people know, "I bought this before Elon went crazy." The backlash against Tesla doesn't just stop with sales numbers. Numerous protests have taken place at Tesla stores across the world, in a movement that's become known as the Tesla takedown. The protests appear to have several goals: encouraging people to divest from Tesla vehicles and stock shares, to economically impact Musk, and challenge his political influence. Tesla remains the largest source of wealth for Musk, and the company's stock price has lost nearly half its value. So let's address Elon's leadership at Tesla. As Elon would tell the story, it's about his pure entrepreneurial grit, repeatedly saving and growing a business that was doomed to collapse if he weren't running it. As we look underneath that, though, we find an electric car company that's been heavily subsidized by government to ensure it won't fail. According to a 2025 investigation by the Washington Post, Elon's companies have relied on $38 billion in government contracts, loans, subsidies, and tax credits, including $11.4 billion for Tesla alone. This provides Tesla a competitive advantage, allowing them to penetrate the market at a scale and speed that would have been unattainable otherwise. The transition to electric vehicles was a necessity, and Tesla was an early trendsetter. Subsidies helped them survive and grow, but other companies have caught up, and Tesla is no longer unique. Consumers have options, and most of them come without the baggage that Tesla has. As for the rest of it, Tesla's controversies are the result of an unethical culture and a significant failing in corporate responsibility. Leadership starts from the top, and Elon Musk is synonymous with the brand. Adding in his problematic politics, trust in Tesla has been eroded on multiple fronts. It's not a stretch to say that their reputation has been ruined, at least in the short term. Major changes are required to ensure accountability towards the company's employees, customers, and the broader community. If Tesla wants to resurrect itself, it should start with firing Elon Musk. Is the board prepared to do that? Time will tell. This is Profit Hawk. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.